Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another video. It is the weekly news roundup, the show where we sit down and we talk about all of the latest Everton news throughout the last week or so. We usually sit down on a Friday and do this, but as tomorrow is New Year's Day and of course Everton play their Premier League fixture against West Ham, I thought we'd sit down New Year's Eve and do it on Thursday instead. Not an awful lot of news to talk about this week. Obviously, we started the week with the suspension, with the postponement of our Premier League game against Manchester City. There's been a lot of fallout from that regarding tests, and Manchester City recorded no new positive tests on Tuesday, so there's been a lot of questions around and that. Everton released a statement just after we'd done our video on Monday night, so we'll talk about that in today's video, but I want to go into talking about injuries first. Carlo Ancelotti had his pre-game press conference yesterday ahead of tomorrow's Premier League game against West Ham United at Goodison Park. He started out by talking about Richarlison and James Rodriguez. He said Richarlison is fit and back and ready to go for the game on Friday. However, James is still out. He said it's just a case of day-by-day monitoring with James Rodriguez and that he is hopeful that he'll be able to return for the game against Rotherham on the 9th of January. Seems like it's pretty much the same sort of situation with James now every time Carlo Ancelotti has a pre-game press conference. I don't really want to get into any of the conspiracies that are thrown about at the moment. I personally think that James is just being allowed a little bit more time to rest so that he is back at 110% when he returns to the team. The last thing we need is James coming back early and only at 70-80% and then picking up another injury and ultimately having to spend more time on the sideline. But the unfortunate thing is he won't be available for tomorrow's game against West Ham United. Carlo Ancelotti is hopeful he'll be back by the 9th of January to play Rotherham in the FA Cup. He did talk about Alan as well. He said that Alan has begun individual training and he said that we are looking at least the end of January he will be ready, so that's really positive news as well. Obviously Alan picking up a hamstring injury a couple of weeks ago in the Premier League and we all sort of feared as to how we'd cope without him because he's such an important player, he's such an important midfielder in the role that he does. Turns out Tom Davies has stepped in and done really, really well against Sheffield United, but obviously we haven't seen that consistency from Tom yet, so it's good to hear that Alan is on the mend and again started his individual training sessions and will hopefully be returning at the end of January, so only around about 4 weeks away. Carlo then went on to talking about Luca Dean. We did have an injury update on Luca Dean a little bit earlier on in the week, as to say that he's working really, really well and Everton is surprised by how fast he has recovered and he'll look to be back within first team training within a couple of weeks. Carlo Ancelotti addressed this yesterday in his pre-game press conference, again confirming that Luca Dean has started his individual training sessions and that they hope that he will maybe be able to be training within a week or so with the first team. So hopefully Luca Dean will be back first team training with all the lads within the next week or so, but he is still completing his individual training. We've seen all the videos on Luca Dean's social media, the work that he's doing, and we've also seen him picture that USM Finch Farm today, back on the pitch with a pair of boots on, kicking a ball. So hopefully within the next week or so Luca Dean will be back training with the team, and then it's back to sort of getting match fitness up then and returning to play. Obviously Ben Godfrey's been coming in at left back and done an absolutely fantastic job, but there's no question about the creativity that we miss when Luca Dean's not in the team, and he'll be welcomed back with open arms, of course. And it's fantastic to see that his recovery is going really, really well. And I suppose the fact that Ben Godfrey's come in and done fantastically well in that position, it means that Luca Dean has got a little bit less pressure on him to come back. He's not going to be rushed back at 60-70% because we're desperate for him to come back. He'll be allowed to complete his full recovery, hopefully completely get over the injury, so when he does come back he's at 110% and he's ready to go again. Obviously there's questions about what happens with Ben Godfrey then. Does he slot back into centre back? But we can address all of those questions when it comes closer to the time. But the most important information is that Luca Dean is really, really on the mend. Everton is surprised with how quick he has recovered from the injury, and Carlo Ancelotti has said that hopefully within the next week or so he'll be able to train with the team again after he has completed all of his individual sessions, which of course is fantastic. It was announced a couple of days ago that Liverpool City region will be placed in Tier 3 restrictions, which of course means that fans will not be allowed to visit Goodison Park. Liverpool City region previously were in Tier 2, which meant that 2,000 fans could go to the game and go and watch Everton live at Goodison Park. Fans were able to go and see the Chelsea game. the game against Arsenal, and of course more recently the Carabao Cup defeat to Manchester United. But now the restrictions have changed just before New Year. It means that fans will not be allowed to go to Goodison Park, which is a real sort of kick in the teeth, especially given the fact that obviously those fans that were pulled out the hat and received a ticket for the game against Manchester United on Monday, Manchester City on Monday, weren't able to go because that game was postponed. And there was a lot of frustration around that and upset around that. It was then announced a couple of days later that those fans that had been picked out the hat for the ticket against West Ham also wouldn't be able to go because the restrictions were put in place from midnight last night. So very, very disappointing, of course. Can't say I'm too surprised about it, to be perfectly honest with you. I sort of had an inkling that the government had changed all of the restrictions around so that there'd be no major cities within tier 1 or 2 practically. So there's no major cities that are allowed to go out and go to pubs or restaurants on New Year's Eve. But it is very, very disappointing for those fans that, picked tickets out the hat to go and watch Everton live at Goodison Park. We don't know when Liverpool City region will return to a lower tier, so unfortunately we don't know when we'll be allowed to travel back to Goodison Park, but hopefully it's not too long, and ultimately at the moment the priority is safety and getting the infection rates down and the cases down and stuff like that. But that was the news yesterday coming out of the government, is that Liverpool City region will be moved into tier 3, which of course means that Everton Football Club will not be allowed to have 2,000 fans at Goodison Park anymore. Just spoke about the postponement of Monday's Premier League game against Manchester City. Like I said, we done a little video on Monday talking about it and how it benefits Everton in terms of rest times ahead of tomorrow's game against West Ham, but also how there's a lot of questions around it and why weren't Everton involved in the decision. Everton have since released a statement regarding this, and the statement reads: Everton Football Club regret the postponement of tonight's match against Manchester City, not only for the 2,000 fans who would have been attending, but for the supporters on Merseyside and across the world. Our players were prepared for the game, as were both the team staff and everybody at Goodison. Match day is the most important date in our calendar, and this was a big one. Whilst Everton will always have public safety uppermost, we will be requesting full disclosure of all the information that Manchester City provided to the Premier League so the club can be clear on why the decision was made. Now, this statement has caused a little bit of fury within, I want to say the footballing world, but it's not really the footballing world. It's more the world of Manchester City and their fans and stuff, who have completely just taking it out of context massively, as to basically make up this story that Everton wanted to play the fixture and that Everton didn't care about the positive test and we just wanted to play the game of football. That isn't the case whatsoever. If you read that statement in full and you actually pay attention to it and don't be an idiot, you can see that Everton are clearly requesting information from the Premier League and Manchester City as to why they weren't involved in the decision to postpone the game. Now, like I said, we done the video on Monday and it was only about an hour or so after the announcement had been made, so as the night went on there was more information that got released, there was more information that come out, and a bit of that information that come out was that Everton actually played no part in the decision to postpone the game. The decision was made by the Premier League and it was made by Manchester City, and Everton was simply informed that the game would not be going ahead. Now, that cannot be happening. This is Premier League football we're talking about. This isn't just a game of football that affected, 11 players and a coach. It's not like Sunday League where you turn up, there's maybe 13, 14 here, there's 3 or 4 people that watch, you turn up on a Sunday, the opposition team phones and goes, we can't come, we haven't got enough players, and you just go, here's right sound, we'll go on, we'll put our feet up, we'll go and have a scran. It's not Sunday League, this is Premier League football. It wouldn't have only just been the entire Everton squad that would have been ready for the game, would have engaged in pre-match meals, would have engaged in training, would have been probably on the coach and ready to come to Goodison Park. It's the coaching staff, it's the fans that were prepared to go down to Goodison Park and would have seen Everton, which coincidentally would have been the last time they were able to see Everton for the moment. It's all of the staff at the stadium, the stewards, the health and safety staff, the ambulance workers. There's a lot of people that are involved in a match day in the Premier League, and for Manchester City in the Premier League to make that decision without even informing the home team who were hosting the fixture is utterly disgraceful. And if you're a Manchester City fan who's read that statement and gone, that's no class from Everton, this, that, the other, you need to wake up and actually read the statement and stop comparing it to statements from Tottenham Hotspur and from Fulham and other clubs where those statements clearly say, we thank the Premier League for their communication and transparency during this situation. Everton's doesn't say that because there was no communication, there was no transparency. Nobody bothered to say, listen, we've got a situation here, we could need to postpone the game, we're going to involve you in the decision. Everton basically picked the phone up and were told the game's off, you're not playing, and we then had to change everything around for that. That cannot be happening, and that is why Everton made the statement. Nothing to do with wanting to play the game and not caring about positive tests. Obviously we cared about the positive test. I said it on Monday. I hope that all of those Manchester City players and staff members and whoever else, as well as everybody in the world, football or not, who is tested positive for the virus, I hope they make a speedy recovery and that everything goes well and it doesn't get too serious for them. Of course we do. And nobody is querying the decision for the game to be postponed. If it wasn't safe to be played, then that's absolutely fine. No issue with that. Sound. It's the fact that there was no transparency, there was no information given to Everton Football Club, and we just were completely out the loop, as if it was like, we don't need to tell them, we're above them, we don't need to mention them. It's a load of bollocks. It's an absolute load of bollocks, and what the Premier League should have done, or Manchester City, whoever is responsible for that, is made sure that Everton were involved in that decision, in the same way as that every other game that's being postponed, both sides have been involved in the decision. Now obviously what we've seen in the last 24 to 48 hours or so is Manchester City have recorded no new positive tests from Tuesday's set of tests, and consequently because of that, have now reopened their training facility, which was originally closed after Monday. So what it seems is that Monday afternoon, we all thought the game was going ahead. Within a couple of hours, the game's off. Manchester City have completely closed their training facilities down. Everything's closed down. This, that, the other. Couple of days later, Wednesday evening, they're opening them back up again because they've had no new positive tests on Tuesday. It sort of rings a lot of bells and it flags a lot of questions up, but I'm not here to answer those questions, and ultimately doesn't really matter. It's irrelevant. What's most important is that those people that have been tested positive ultimately have a healthy and safe recovery, and that these idiotic fans, and even worse, media, I'm seeing media, I'm disgraced by Everton's statements. They don't care about the people that have tested positive, they just wanted to play the fixture. It worked for Everton that the fixture was postponed. We didn't have to play a strong Manchester City side, even with 3 or 4 players out. We get more rest. We'd have only had 24 hours rest from the last game against Sheffield United. We get more rest, and we now go into the West Ham game with, not a fully fit squad, obviously, because there's players injured, but the players that are available, fully rested and ready to go, rather than on 3 or 4 days rest. We're coming up against a team in West Ham who haven't had that rest, so we've actually got an advantage. So it worked for the squad and the team that the game was postponed, and it was a positive thing. The statement is about the fact that we weren't involved in the decision, which is utterly disrespectful and completely just shows the amount of respect that certain clubs and the Premier League have for Everton, as that they didn't involve them. Some Manchester City fans seem to think that Everton were completely involved in the decision. It's factually put out there that we weren't involved in the decision, which is why we have requested the information, which is completely and utterly within our right to do so. We were told the game's off, it's being postponed, with nothing else. We are well within our right to say, well, we want to know the reasons why. We want to know the details that the Manchester City give to the Premier League, because every other club that's had the game postponed has had that, so why shouldn't we get the same? And if you're still, after listening to me saying that and after reading into the statement, you're still one of these fans that thinks, oh, look at Everton, disgrace this, that, the other, then you just don't have a clue, and you're probably better going to make some cakes or something, because you just don't understand the situation whatsoever. There you go, frustrated me a little bit, that one, but look, ultimately, I think, again, it's very, very evident. It's not hard. It's not rocket science. It doesn't take a genius to work out. If the game wasn't safe to be played and needed to be postponed, absolutely fine. That's fair enough. The last thing we want is an outbreak of the virus in our camp, with our players, with our coaching staff, with our fans. That's the last thing we want. Fine, perfect. It means we don't get an outbreak in the virus, and it means we get a couple of days more rest ahead of the West Ham game. Brilliant. But we should have had all the information, and we didn't have all the information, which is why we've requested the information. Nothing to do with wanting the game to have been played. It's to do with the fact that we weren't informed as to why the game wasn't to be played, and we weren't part of that conversation, which shows a complete lack of disrespect to Everton Football Club. So there you go. Anyway, that's my little rant on that. Obviously, we spoke a lot about it on Monday, but like I said, more information has come out since, so I thought I'd just talk on that and Everton's statements and stuff that's weirdly caused a little bit of stir from certain Manchester City fans. Not all Manchester City fans. Some fans have read it and gone, I understand that, that's fair enough, and some City fans have said, look, if there hasn't been communication with Everton, it's really, really poor, and we wouldn't like it. So fair play to those fans, but there's a couple of accounts on Twitter, I'm sure you'll know I'm talking about, who are just sprouting nonsense day in, day out, really, and clearly don't understand the world. Never mind this situation. Anyway, bit of transfer news to move on to now. Literally just come out within the last hour or so. Christian Falk, who is a journalist who, again, is quite well known throughout the world, has said that Sami Khedira is in England for transfer talks with Everton. However, the player also wants to talk with other clubs about a potential transfer move this January. Obviously, Sami Khedira is a player that Everton have been linked with a number of times over the last couple of weeks or so. He is a player that seems to be desperate to come and play in the Premier League. I think he had an interview a couple of weeks ago, or maybe even sooner than that, saying that, you know, he wants to add the Premier League to his resume of leagues that he's played in. And he's also spoken openly about wanting to play for Carlo Ancelotti again and having a good relationship with Carlo Ancelotti and all of that sort of stuff. The same stuff that we hear quite often from players that have played under Carlo. Carlo did come out and address this situation a couple of weeks ago and said, look, I enjoyed the time that I had at Real Madrid with Sami Khedira, but he's a Real Madrid player and we're not looking at January transfer windows at the moment. Maybe we'll address that situation closer to the time. Pretty much the same thing he said about James before James Rodriguez come to Everton. But Christian Falk is convinced that Sami Khedira is in England for transfer talk with Everton. However, he is also wanting to talk to other clubs regarding a potential move. Now, that is a red flag, obviously, because if you're coming to the country to have transfer talks with Everton and you want to play for Carlo Ancelotti again and you love Carlo Ancelotti and how he managed and this, that, the other, why you're interested in talking to other clubs. And it's also something that Carlo Ancelotti spoke about in the summer when we signed the likes of James Rodriguez and Alan. He said, look, the one thing I do when I want to bring players to a football club is I phone them up and I say, do you want to come here? And if they're not absolutely 100% on coming, then I just say forget it and I don't sign them. And this sounds a bit like Sami Khedira isn't absolutely 100% on coming. Whether that's that or whether Everton have said we're not 100% on signing you, so he's saying I'll come and talk to Everton, but I also want to talk to other clubs as well because I don't think they 100% want me. Obviously, there's still more to be released on information-wise on that. But according to Christian Falk, Sami Khedira is in England and is here for transfer talks with Everton. So very, very interesting. Make of that what you will. Would they take him? Look, I don't know. He's another aging midfielder. He's a good player. He is a good player, but I don't know whether he's what he needs. I don't know whether he's got enough energy, to be perfectly honest, to play in the Premier League. I don't know whether he'd be another sort of Andre Gomez situation, a good footballer, but doesn't really do the work off the ball, but you never know. Let me know your thoughts on that one in the comment section down below. And then final bit of news for today is that there was a little bit of news going around earlier on this week after the postponement of our game against Manchester City, as the state that Premier League clubs and the chairmen of Premier League clubs have held informal talks about wanting a break in the Premier League, a 2-week break, circuit break, in order to just sort of calm down the cases and stuff like that. And, obviously to make sure that everybody is safe, because safety is, of course, the most important thing. It comes before football. Life comes before football. However, the Premier League quickly announced yesterday that they weren't looking at having a break in play, that their rule that they put out a couple of weeks ago, which was ultimately broken with our game against Manchester City and broken for yesterday with Tottenham and Fulham, is that, if you're suffering from cases, then you've got to play with a weakened squad or whatever, and if 12 players test positive, negative or whatever, then they can play, and this, that, the other. They've said that, basically they're not looking to postpone the league or to have a circuit break, and that's no surprise, to be perfectly honest with you, because we've already had, I think, 3, maybe 4 postponed Premier League games that'll need to be played again, due to, obviously, COVID outbreaks in club camps, and obviously we've got the Euros coming up in the summer, so the last thing they want will to be piss off UEFA, and basically say we're going to put a break in the season and push the Euros back even more. So there you go, that is the news for this week. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments section down below. If you have enjoyed the video, please do hit that like button. It does only take a second. It is New Year's Eve. I want to say a massive happy new year to everybody for watching. A big thanks for all of the support throughout 2020. I really do appreciate it. Looking forward to 2021, on to bigger and better things, and hopefully the Toffees start it with a big 3 points tomorrow. Massive thanks for watching. If you have enjoyed, please do hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you are new as well. Have a fantastic night tonight. Stay safe. And I hope you all have a brilliant night celebrating the new year. Big thanks for watching. A very happy new year to everybody, and we'll see you soon on the Mighty Blues.